The rain hammered against the towering, arched windows of Mellows, a frantic and irregular rhythm assaulting the glass. Outside, Manhattan had dissolved into a watercolor wash of bleeding neon signs and indistinct shadows. Inside, the world was hushed, a sanctuary of plush carpets and dimly illuminated nooks. The silence was a deliberately crafted luxury, a heavy and expensive blanket that muffled the city's distant wails. It was a place where secrets were whispered over bottles of wine that cost more than most people's rent, the air thick with cloying perfume and the metallic tang of raw power. Nina was invisible, and she had built her entire existence around that very principle. She navigated the spaces between tables, her plain black uniform a perfect, practical camouflage. Her feet throbbed with a dull, familiar ache that had become her constant companion. Mellows was her second job, the one that barely kept her afloat, paying the rent on the drafty apartment her grandmother had left her, the one with the wheezing pipes and the view of a rusty fire escape. She was just an ordinary girl, and in a place like this, ordinary was less than human. It was simply non-existent. Her station for the evening was the Siberia of the floor plan, a cluster of tables located closest to the main floor, yet furthest from the bustling kitchen. This translated to longer walks, colder food, and significantly smaller tips. However, it also meant that she was positioned in close proximity to the two most crucial tables in the entire room. Table 7 was the undeniable epicenter of the room's underlying tension. It belonged to Victor the Wolf Orloff. Nina had never actually seen him in person, only heard the hushed whispers and the ominous stories that depicted him as a ghost with a butcher's knife. The wolf, the herald of a new dawn for the Bratva, a man who had consolidated his burgeoning empire with a speed and ruthlessness that had terrified the established Italian families. He was younger than the legends suggested, perhaps only 35. He sat coiled in his chair, an imposing figure of absolute stillness in a tailored black suit that probably cost more than her entire year's tuition. His dark eyes were flat and emotionless, absorbing the candlelight without reflection. His mere presence created a vacuum of chilling silence and unwavering control. He was dining with his fiancée, Talia, a woman who looked like she had been sculpted from pure ice and then draped in glittering diamonds. Seated next to her was her stepfather, Ivan Volov, a formidable Russian oligarch with a face that resembled a deceptively cheerful bulldog. The engagement was the most talked about event in the underworld, a monumental merger of empires, a powerful union. But Nina's focus was firmly fixed on table 8, located a mere 2 feet behind Victor's chair. Two men sat there, feigning disinterest and attempting to blend in as ordinary diners. Their suits were pulled too tight across their broad shoulders. Their hands seemed far too large and clumsy for the delicate wine stems, and their eyes were far too alert and watchful. They were wolves too, but of a different, cruder breed. They were Ivan's men, and they were speaking in rapid, hushed Russian. Nina, though born in Brooklyn, had been raised by a babushka who had stubbornly refused to speak a single word of English for the first 10 years of her life. The language was as natural and effortless to her as breathing. It had always been a useless party trick until tonight. She moved to a nearby service station, carefully turning her back to them, and pretended to meticulously polish silverware. A shadow among shadows. Slushcom Dolgo. Too long, the first man muttered, his voice a low, menacing growl. This alliance is a mistake. Ivan should just take the territory. Patience, Dimitri, the second man rumbled, his voice like grinding gravel. It's all arranged. Kogda padut dessert? When they serve dessert. Nina's hand froze, the polishing cloth stopping abruptly mid-wipe. Her blood instantly ran ice cold. She forced her hands to resume their task, picking up another fork with feigned nonchalance. She subtly angled her body, straining to listen, every nerve ending suddenly alive and buzzing with awareness. Commander Nakin, the team is in the kitchen, Dimitri said, his voice still low. He's good, but he's not that good. Asterisk Oniet star. They will cut the power. Nina's heart began to race, a frantic, trapped bird fluttering wildly in her chest. A team in the kitchen. Cut the power. This wasn't just a dinner, It was an execution. This was a meticulously planned ambush. The second man laughed, a short, ugly sound that sent shivers down her spine. It's a clean sweep. Oh boyzu. Both of them. Both Victor and Talia. Her nerves frayed to the breaking point. She found it difficult to breathe. She was just a waitress. This wasn't her world. This wasn't her fight. She should simply walk away, retreat to the relative safety of the locker room, clock out, and disappear into the anonymity of the rain-soaked streets. She could be safely on the subway before the first shot was even fired. She started to move, to retreat, her body screaming at her to run, to flee the impending danger. Then Dimitri spoke again, his voice laced with a casual, bored contempt that chilled her to the bone. Asterisk da. I devato. Asterisk. Yes, and the girl too. Ivan wants it done. Ona daljna umeret. She must die. Nina froze, paralyzed by what she had just heard. The girl too. They were going to kill Talia. Her own stepfather had signed her death warrant. The casual, monstrous cruelty of it was a line lifted straight from a nightmare. It wasn't just a power play. It was a complete and utter purge. Nina's mind, which had been dulled by exhaustion, suddenly snapped into razor-sharp focus. She saw the kitchen door, 50 feet away. She saw the maitre d', blissfully oblivious to the danger lurking beneath the surface. She saw Victor Orlov, a monster. Yes, but a monster about to be slaughtered alongside his unsuspecting fiancée by a different, perhaps even more terrifying monster. She looked at Talia, who was laughing, a high, tinkling sound, completely unaware of the impending doom. A lamb being led to the slaughter. Damn it! She looked at table 8. The second man, the one who had laughed, was flagging her down, trying to get her attention. He was pointedly indicating his empty water glass. It was a sign, a grotesque parody of her normal, invisible life. She picked up the heavy glass bottle of water from her station. Her hands were trembling, the bottle slick with condensation. This was insane. She was a civilian, an ordinary girl caught in an extraordinary situation. But she was also the only person in this entire room who knew the truth. She started toward table 8, following her orders. Her path took her directly past table 7. She saw the man at table 8 subtly shift his weight. Dimitri looked past her toward the kitchen and gave a barely perceptible nod. Once, Nina's eyes followed his gaze. The heavy, circular window in the kitchen door, usually a blur of chaotic motion, was suddenly dark. A shadow blocked it from the inside. They weren't waiting for dessert. The plan was accelerating. It was happening now. She was out of time. No time to explain. No time to be subtle. No time to think. Nina's mind went completely blank, taken over by pure, screaming instinct. She was now only 2 feet from Victor's chair. She deliberately let her ankle roll. With a cry of feigned pain, she pitched forward in what she hoped was a perfectly orchestrated collapse. She didn't just spill the water. She threw herself at the table, using the heavy bottle as a makeshift battering ram. The thick glass bottom connected squarely with Victor's wine glass with a shrill, ear-splitting ring, which then toppled precariously into Ivan's. Water, ice, and dark red wine exploded across the pristine white linen tablecloth. "Oh no!" Nina cried, her voice laced with practiced panic. "I'm so sorry, sir. I slipped." Talia shrieked as the icy wine soaked into her delicate silk dress. Ivan jumped back, sputtering curses in rapid Russian. Asterisk idiotka. Asterisk, idiot girl, he roared. In that single chaotic second, the only one she would get, Nina fell against Victor's chair. His entire body was taut, rigid, already reacting to the sudden anomaly. He was turning, his hand instinctively moving beneath his jacket. She grabbed the lapel of his expensive suit to steady herself. Her mouth was suddenly intimately close to his ear. The scent of his cologne, sandalwood and amber, was overwhelming, a powerful cloud of danger and sophistication. She whispered 2 words choked with all the fear and adrenaline she possessed. "Run now." The world seemed to stop. For one agonizing heartbeat, The only sound was the shrill ringing of the toppled crystal and Talia's indignant gasp. Nina was frozen, still pressed against Victor's shoulder, the rough wool of his suit scratching against her cheek. She could feel the solid, coiled power of the man beneath the expensive fabric, his body tensed like a drawn spring. Victor Orloff did not question her. He did not ask why. He did not look for confirmation. He was a creature of the underworld, a predator who had survived this long by trusting his pure animal instinct. And Nina's terror was the most honest thing he had felt all night. He believed her implicitly. He didn't just move, he erupted. His hand, the one that wasn't already moving under his jacket, shot out and grabbed Nina's arm. His grip wasn't a rescue. It was a vice, an act of brutal possession. He yanked her hard, pulling her down behind him as he rose to his full height. "Yvonne!" he roared, a deep-chested command that was not a warning, but an outright accusation. He used his own body as a shield for Nina, and in the same fluid motion, he flipped the heavy mahogany dining table. It was an act of impossible, raw strength. The table went over with a deafening groan, sending a wall of fire from the centerpiece, shattered plates, and burning wine crashing toward Yvonne and Talia. It was a scene of utter chaos. It was 1 second too late. Click. The darkness was absolute. The power was cut. The screams began instantly, high and thin, from the other terrified diners. And then the gunfire cracked and ripped the air apart. It wasn't the sharp pop of pistols. It was the tearing, automatic rip of submachine guns. A sound so deafeningly loud that it vibrated in Nina's teeth. The team from the kitchen. Nina screamed, pressing her face into the carpet. The air filled instantly with the acrid smell of cordite and the coppery tang of fear. A bullet sparked off the marble pillar just above her head, showering her with stinging stone dust. The men from Table 8 were firing blindly, spraying the area where Victor had been just moments before. "You!" A voice growled in her ear, cutting through the surrounding panic. It was Victor. He had found her in the pitch black, his grip on her arm never faltering. He was a solid, reassuring presence in the chaos. "The kitchen team, how many?" I don't know," she gasped, her breath shallow, her nerves completely frayed. "They just said a team. Where are the others?" "Table 8. Behind us. 2 of them." "He's running!" A voice yelled in Russian from the kitchen, sounding closer now. "Good," Victor snarled. He didn't run for the front door, the obvious exit. Instead, he pulled her in the opposite direction, back toward the service stations, dragging her low and fast. He was a shadow moving through shadows. He seemed to be able to see perfectly in the dark. His lethal grace was unnerving. A muzzle flash briefly illuminated his face, revealing a mask of cold fury. He fired twice, the sound of his heavy-caliber pistol a deep boom that answered the ripping chatter of the submachine guns. 2 grunts answered him from the darkness. He kicked open a door marked, "Private." He wasn't running, he was hunting. He plunged them down a narrow, rickety set of stairs, the ones that led to the wine cellar. He slammed the heavy oak door shut, the thud echoing through the space, and shot the lock. They were plunged into a new kind of darkness, a cold, subterranean dark, thick with the smell of dust, damp earth, and aging wine. The only sound was the frantic pounding of footsteps on the floor above them and the slow, steady drip, drip, drip of water from a leaky pipe somewhere in the void. Nina collapsed against the damp brick wall, her legs finally giving out. Her body shook in violent, uncontrollable tremors. Her hands were bleeding, sliced open by the shattered glass from the table. A small, intense beam of light clicked on. The flashlight from Victor's phone. He was immaculate, not a hair out of place. His hand, still holding the heavy black pistol, was as steady as a surgeon's. He aimed the light at her face. She flinched, feeling like a trapped animal, her blood running cold. "Who?" he commanded, his voice a low, lethal vibration in the cellar. "The hell are you?" I'm Nina," she stammered, her voice a reedy thing. "I'm a waitress upstairs." Victor Orloff's dark eyes didn't blink. The light remained steady on her face, a tool of interrogation, illuminating her trembling fingers and the streaks of mascara and terror on her cheeks. "The Russian," he said. It wasn't a question. It was a demand. "How?" "My grandmother," she whispered, her throat raw. "She raised me. She never spoke English. I understand it." "What did you hear?" His voice was short, sharp. He wasn't asking for a summary. He was demanding a precise transcript. I was at the service station," she recounted, the words tumbling out in a rush. "The table behind you, table 8. 2 men, Ivan's men. They said." "What?" he repeated, his voice dropping dangerously low. "What did they say?" She took a shaky breath, mentally translating the fragments. The casual brutality. "They said when they serve dessert, they said cut the power. A team is in the kitchen. They said both of them. And what? And the girl too?" Nina whispered, the words tasting like ash in her mouth. *devato. They said she must die. Victor remained perfectly still. The only sound was the dripping water, a slow, agonizing metronome counting out time in the shadows. He was processing, his mind a cold engine calculating new variables. He had been expecting a betrayal. He was always expecting betrayal. But this was a different equation. Ivan wasn't just launching a coup. He was cleaning his own house. Crash! The oak door above them splintered. Heavy footsteps pounded on the stairs, accompanied by shouting in Russian. Victor's control was instantaneous. The lights snapped off, plunging them back into absolute darkness. He grabbed her arm again. His grip wasn't a rescue. It was an act of possession. "Not a sound," he whispered, his voice a vibration against her ear. She could feel the warmth of his skin, a terrifying, living heat in the dead cold. "He's not here," a man yelled from the top of the stairs. "Find the old tunnel. Biro quickly. They know." Nina gasped, a chill running down her spine. "This way." He pulled her hard, deeper into the cellar. "Stay low." He moved with an unnatural, fluid certainty, navigating the maze of wine racks. She stumbled, her cheap server shoes slipping on the damp stone floor. He didn't slow down, his grip on her arm relentless, dragging her forward. "Where? Prohibition," he grunted, his voice tight. He stopped abruptly at a solid brick wall, a dead end. Nina's heart raced, a frantic, hopeless pounding in her chest. It was a trap. They were cornered. Victor shoved a massive, dust-covered wine rack. It groaned, scraping against the floor, then moved on hidden wheels, revealing a low, arched opening, a tunnel. It smelled of wet earth, rot, and something ancient. The shadows inside were absolute. "Go!" he commanded, shoving her forward. The passage was cramped, the ceiling so low that she had to hunch over. She ran half-blind, her hands scraping against the rough, uneven walls. Behind them, she heard the wine rack being shoved back into place, followed by muffled shouts from the cellar. They were hunting. Victor was right behind her, his larger body filling the tunnel. She could hear his steady, controlled breathing, a counterpoint to her own panicked gasps. They emerged not into an alley, but into a stark, concrete-walled space, a private, subterranean garage. A single, gleaming black SUV sat waiting. It was a machine of war, its armored plating and tinted windows a jarring contrast to the 1920s tunnel they had just left. He yanked the rear passenger door open. "In." She scrambled inside, falling onto the cold leather. He was in after her, slamming the door shut. The interior was silent. The chaos of the city was instantly muted. He pressed a button on a small, secure phone. "Anton, extract named Leno." Immediately, the engine roared to life with a deep, predatory thrum. The SUV shot out of the garage, tires screaming, and merged into the rain-slicked Manhattan night. They drove in silence for 10 minutes. The only sound was the rhythmic thwack-thwack of the windshield wipers and the incessant buzzing of Victor's phone. He ignored it. He didn't look at her. He just stared ahead, his knuckles white on his knee, his jaw set, his dark eyes scanning every mirror, every alley. Nina's adrenaline was fading, replaced by a deep, bone-rattling shock. Her hands were bleeding. Her uniform was torn. She had just saved the life of the most dangerous man in New York, and in doing so had signed her own death warrant. "You saved my life," he said finally, his voice flat and devoid of emotion. It wasn't gratitude. It was a statement of fact, a transaction. They were going to kill her, too. Talia, her own father. Victor's head snapped toward her. The car swerved slightly. "What did you say?" "The man, Ivan, I heard them. Devato, the girl, too. They were going to kill them all." Victor stared at her, the car idling at a red light. The dim glow from the dashboard cast his face in harsh angles. He wasn't just looking at her. He was seeing her. He was recalculating. The escape wasn't the end. It was the beginning. "Ivan didn't just try to kill me," he said, his voice a low, dangerous rumble. "He tried to kill his own daughter." "Yes," Nina whispered, her throat tight with fear. The light turned green. Victor didn't move. He continued to stare at her, and Nina felt pinned by the intensity of his gaze, like an insect under glass. "You aren't a waitress," he stated. "I am. I understand the language." "No." He finally turned away, accelerating the car smoothly into the night. "You're a witness, and now you're mine." The words hung in the air, a sentence worse than any prison. He wasn't thanking her. He was claiming her. The black SUV had deposited her into a void. Victor Orloff's penthouse wasn't a home. It was a statement of power. A sterile, cold expanse of black marble, chrome, and glass, suspended 1,000 feet above the indifferent lights of Manhattan. It was the most beautiful cage Nina had ever seen. For 48 hours, she was left completely alone. Her world shrank to the perimeter of the living room, from the floor-to-ceiling window overlooking Central Park to the black marble wall concealing the kitchen. From the kitchen back to the glass, she paced a trembling, frantic rhythm on the silent floor. Her only human contact was a mountain of a man in a suit named Anton. He was the guard stationed at the private elevator, the only way in or out. Twice a day, he would enter, place a tray of exquisite food on the table, and leave without uttering a single word. Nina didn't touch it. The silence was the real enemy. It wasn't a peaceful quiet. It was an active, oppressive force. A silence stretched so thin that it vibrated. The apartment was soundproofed. The rain that lashed against the windows was a silent movie. The distant sirens were invisible. The only sound was the low, electric thrum of the ventilation system, a cold, artificial breath. This was the psychological stretch. She was a string pulled taut between two opposing forces. The first and most powerful was fear. It was a cold liquid in her veins, poisoning her blood, freezing her in place. Her life, the one defined by the drafty apartment and the groaning pipes, was over. It had evaporated the instant she'd whispered, "Run now." She was a witness. She was a loose end. She replayed the night at Mello's over and over in her mind, stuck in a continuous loop. The gunfire crack, the shadows in the kitchen, the splintering wood, the cold of the cellar, the warmth of his skin as he dragged her through the darkness, and his final words, "You're mine." It was the language of possession. She was his. She was an object he had acquired, like the sterile furniture or the abstract art that hung on the walls. She was terrified of him, of his lethal stillness, of the casual control he exerted over the world. She was terrified of Anton. She was terrified of Ivan Volov, the man who would be hunting her. But warring with that paralyzing fear was a second, sharper force, a force that was, in its own way, just as dangerous: curiosity. It was an itch in her brain, a puzzle she couldn't let go of. It was the one thing that kept her mind from shattering into a million pieces. Why would Ivan Volov, a man of immense wealth and power, order the execution of his own stepdaughter? She would stand at the window for hours, her trembling fingers pressed against the cold glass, watching the microscopic city below. She replayed the words she'd heard at table 8. And the girl too, she must die. It wasn't an accident. It wasn't collateral damage. It was a primary objective. And then Victor's final, chilling words from the night of the escape. Ivan didn't just try to kill me. He tried to kill his daughter. He knew. He had confirmed it. Nina's fear made her want to curl up into a ball and disappear. Her curiosity made her want to stand up and fight. She realized with a jolt that she wasn't just afraid of Victor. She was terrified for Talia. She felt a strange, unwelcome kinship with the icy blonde fiancée. They were two women caught in the gears of this monstrous machine. This curiosity began to eat away at the edges of her terror. It gave her a focus beyond the four walls of her cage. It was a mystery, and her mind, starved of stimulus, seized it hungrily. What could Talia have done? What did she know? On the third morning, the silence broke. The sound of the private elevator arriving sent Nina's heart racing, jumping into her throat. She scrambled back, her breath shallow, her hands flying to her mouth in a futile attempt to silence her fear. Her body instinctively sought the furthest corner of the room, retreating behind a large, black leather sofa. She was a mouse and the hawk was descending. The stainless steel doors slid open with a soft hiss. Victor Orloff entered. He wasn't wearing the suit from the restaurant. He was dressed in dark trousers and a crisp white shirt, the sleeves rolled up to his forearms. The casual attire was 1,000 times more intimidating than any suit could ever be. It was domestic, it was proprietary, and it revealed the intricate, terrifying tapestry of his underworld tattoos, blue-black ink that snaked from his wrists to his elbows. He didn't speak. He walked to the bar, his movements fluid and silent as a panther. He poured a single glass of water and placed it deliberately on the coffee table. He saw her hiding, but his dark eyes made no acknowledgement of her presence. He prowled the room, a predator inspecting his new territory. He stopped at the window, staring down at the city, his back to her. "You have not eaten," he said. His voice, a low thrum, was not an accusation. It was a statement of fact. Nina said nothing, her body rigid with fear. "Anton will bring you soup. You will eat it." He turned, his gaze an intensity of physical force that pinned her to the wall. "You are no use to me dead." What do you want from me?" She finally managed, her voice a reedy whisper. "I am deciding. Am I a prisoner?" "You are an asset," he corrected, his voice sharp as a razor. "You are a witness. You are the only person alive who heard Ivan Volov give a direct order that contradicts his narrative. That makes you valuable, but it also makes you a target." He stepped closer. Nina flinched, but she held her ground. The curiosity was burning too hot to back down. "Talia," she said, the name sounding incredibly loud in the quiet room. Victor's eyebrow raised, a flicker of genuine curiosity in his gaze. "What about her? Where is she? Is she alive?" A ghost of a smile touched his lips. A cold, thin expression. "Curious. Good. Fear is a useless emotion. Kraska, little one. Paralyzes. Curiosity is a tool." "Is she alive?" Na repeated, her voice firmer. "She is. Why did he want her dead?" The question escaped before she could stop it. A desperate, reckless gamble for an answer. Victor studied her, a long, unnerving appraisal. He was deciding, calculating. "You want to know?" he asked, his voice soft. "Dangerous." Na nodded, her throat dry. "Come with me." He turned and walked back to the elevator. He placed his thumb on the scanner. The doors opened. He was inviting her out of the cage, but she knew with a spine-chilling certainty that he was only leading her into a smaller, darker one. Her fear screamed at her, "Don't move! Stay here! Don't go deeper!" Her curiosity whispered, "This is the answer. This is the only way." She followed him. Her legs felt unsteady, but she walked. She stepped into the elevator, the doors closing, sealing her in the small, mirrored space with him. The scent of his cologne, sandalwood and amber, was suffocating. The elevator didn't go up. It went down deep, deep into the foundations of the building, far below the garage. It opened into a white, sterile corridor, bright as a hospital, smelling of ozone and chilled air. This wasn't a penthouse, this was a bunker. Anton stood outside a heavy steel door. He nodded to Victor. Victor pressed his hand to another scanner. The door hissed open, revealing a large, windowless room dominated by a bank of computers. In the center, sitting on a simple cot, was Talia. She was alive, but she was a different person from the icy princess in the restaurant. Her hair was matted, her face pale and bruised, but her eyes were on fire with a cold, pure hatred. "You," Talia spat, her eyes locking on Nina. "You're the waitress." "Talia," Victor said, his voice a command. Tell her why your father wants you dead." Talia looked from Na's trembling form to Victor's cold, indifferent stare. A sound tore from her throat. A high, sharp, broken laugh. It was a terrible, ugly sound in the sterile, windowless room. "Tell her," she spat, the word dripping with venom. "The help? Why? So she can serve me my last meal?" Victor didn't move. His control was absolute, his stillness a display of physical power in the room. "Tell her," he repeated, his voice a low thrum, "or I will." Talia's eyes, bright with a feverish, desperate hatred, snapped to Nina. "You want to know why?" she hissed, clutching the thin blanket on the cot. "Because of him." She spat the word at Victor. "This viso eto. All of this whole engagement was a lie, a deal." She took a ragged breath, her nerves frayed and exposed. "He's not my father," she whispered, the words a raw confession. "He's my jailer. He killed my real father 15 years ago and took his empire. He kept me a trophy, a pretty, obedient doll to be bartered, a daughter to seal his alliances." She gestured at Victor, her hand shaking with rage. "And you were the highest bidder, my hand in marriage for a piece of your shipping territory. A merger of empires. A simple, cold transaction." "A deal is a deal," Victor said, his voice flat. He moved to the bank of humming servers, turning his back on them both, an act of supreme confidence. "The terms were acceptable." "Acceptable to you?" Talia shot back. "I was just the asset being traded. He thought I was stupid. He thought I was broken." She stood from the cot, the tension making her seem taller, more powerful, despite the bruises. "He thought I wouldn't fight back. My stepfather's power," she continued, her gaze locked on Na as if Victor wasn't even there, "isn't in guns like yours. It's in secrets. He calls himself the Ghost. For 20 years he has collected everything, the politician with a gambling debt, the judge with a hidden family, the rivals like your father, Victor, who made deals they shouldn't have, all in one place." Na breathed, her curiosity momentarily overwhelming her fear. "The ledger." Talia's lips twisted in a bitter smile. His entire life's work, every transaction, every piece of blackmail, every betrayal, every murder, all cross-referenced on a single encrypted hard drive. The silence in the room was absolute. This was the secret. This was the why. "And I stole it," Talia whispered, the words triumphant. "Insane." Na's heart raced. This changed everything. "I took it 2 weeks ago," Talia continued, her voice feverish, her eyes alight. "I was his trusted heir. I had access. I was planning to give it to him." She jabbed a finger at Victor's back. "As a wedding present. My dowry. A guarantee that Ivan could never, ever move against us. I was buying my freedom. I was buying his protection, but he found out." Na finished the pieces of the bloody puzzle, slamming into place. "He found out. The night of the dinner. He must have realized it was missing. He realized I had betrayed him. The dinner, the ambush, it wasn't a coup, Victor. It was a purge. He wasn't just trying to kill you to take your territory. He was trying to kill me to get the drive back. Killing you was just a bonus." Victor finished, his voice like ice. He turned around, his dark eyes flat and analytical. Na's blood ran cold. The phrase from the restaurant, "I devato," echoed in her mind. It wasn't an afterthought. It was the entire purpose. So where is it? Na asked, looking around the bunker. The drive. He didn't get it. You're here. No, Talia said, a strange, cunning look entering her eyes. I didn't have it on me. I'm not that stupid. I knew the dinner was a risk. I'm his daughter. I know how he thinks. She looked at Victor. I hid it somewhere safe. Somewhere he would never look. The Volov Hotel, Victor stated. It wasn't a question. Talia's face went white. How did you? My men have been tracking your movements for a month, Victor said, his voice devoid of emotion. You went to the hotel 3 days ago. You didn't go to the spa as your schedule said. You went to the service level, to the staff lockers. You hid it. It's in a locker. Talia breathed, defeated. Locker 34B in the female changing room, taped inside the heel of an old work boot. So just send your men, Na said, her mind racing. It's a hotel, not a fortress. It is a fortress now, Victor countered, his voice sharp as shattered glass. Ivan is not stupid. He knows she hid it. He knows it's in that hotel. He has locked the place down. Is crawling with his men, disguised as security. They are watching every entrance, every camera. No one goes in or out of that service level without his personal clearance. My men would be cut to ribbons before they got past the lobby. He's right, Talia said, her voice bitter, slumping back onto the cot. We're trapped. The drive is in that hotel. I'm in this cage. It's a stalemate. It was a stalemate, Victor corrected. His dark eyes snapped to Nina, and his focus was so total, so absolute. It felt like a physical touch, until I remembered my invisible waitress. Na felt a chill, a cold premonition up her spine. What? What do you mean? Ivan is watching me. He is watching his hotel for my men. He is scanning for soldiers. He is not watching a 20-year-old girl in a cheap coat applying for a job. A job? Na's heart hammered. The Volov Hotel is hiring, Victor said, a ghost of a smile playing on his lips. Housekeeping, high turnover. They'll hire anyone who can pass a background check. A background check? I'm a witness to a Mafia shooting. You are Nina Petrova, Victor said, tapping a key on his computer terminal. A file flashed onto the screen. A new face, hers but different, a new history. You are a Ukrainian refugee. You arrived 2 weeks ago. You have no family, no connections, and you desperately need a job. Your credentials are immaculate. He had created a new her, a new shadow. You want me to walk in there? Na whispered, her mouth dry with fear. To get a job and just take it? You are the only person in this city who can, Victor said, his intensity making her feel like the only person in the world. You can move without being seen. You are invisible. You are the shadow he cannot see. And you are the only one Talia might actually trust. What? Na and Talia said in unison. Victor looked at Talia. I can get Na inside the hotel, but you have to get her to the drive. The locker number, which you so kindly provided, the combination, the description of the boot. You must give her the code. Talia stared at Nina, her mind racing, calculating. Trust a waitress? A stranger? The ordinary girl who started this all? This is your one and only choice, Talia. Victor pressed, his voice soft, lethal. Trust the waitress or wait for your father to find that drive first. And when he does, your life and hers are worth nothing. The silence in the bunker was no longer just an absence of sound. It was a physical wait, a vacuum waiting for Na's answer. Talia was watching her. Her face a mask of desperate, fragile hope. Victor was watching her, his dark eyes unreadable, analytical, expecting. He had laid out the terms. He had revealed the secret. He had presented the choice. Na's mind, which had been frozen by fear, was now racing. The curiosity that had tormented her for 3 days had finally been fed, and it had given way to a terrifying clarity. This was her destiny. Not the grand, romantic kind, but a grimy, back-alley kind. She was the linchpin. No, Na said, her voice quiet. The ghost of a smile vanished from Victor's face. Talia's breath hitched. No. Victor's voice was cold, a layer of ice forming over his words. You misunderstand, Kraska. This is not a negotiation. It is a clarification of your circumstances. You will do this. No. Na repeated louder this time. She was trembling, but it was no longer the passive shiver of a victim. It was the vibration of a string pulled taut. Not like this, not as your pawn. She stood up from the floor, her legs shaky, and faced him. She was an ordinary girl in a borrowed silk robe, facing the wolf in his den, but she held the one thing he needed. She held the key. You said it yourself, she continued, her heart racing, but her voice steadying. I am the only one who can do this. Talia only trusts me. Ivan doesn't see me. That makes me the one with the power, not you. Victor's stillness was absolute. He didn't move, didn't breathe. He just watched her, his intensity a palpable force. He was recalculating. So, we make a new deal, Na said, her voice gaining strength. Not your plan, our plan. And there is a price. There always is, Victor said, his voice a low, dangerous thrum. First, Na said, turning to Talia. You are going to give me the real combination to that locker. Not a fake, not a trap, because I am the only person walking out of that hotel for you. If I fail, you die here. You will trust me. Talia looked at Nina, seeing not a waitress but an ally. She nodded, a single, sharp dip of her chin. Locker 34B. The combination is my father's birthday. The real one, 81-11-72. It's taped inside the left boot. A green hiking boot. Good, Na said. She turned back to Victor. Now you. The air crackled. Victor had not been spoken to like this, perhaps, in his entire life. You said you would protect me. That's not good enough. You said you'd give me Ivan. That's not good enough either. I don't want revenge. I want justice. Justice, Victor said, the words sounding foreign, distasteful. There is no justice in our world. There is only what you can take. Then I'm taking this, Nina countered. You want the hard drive? You want the ledger that dismantles your greatest enemy? You will not use it to become another Ivan. You will not just absorb his empire. You will burn it. Burn it? Talia shrieked. My father's life's work. That drive is worth billions. And it's covered in blood. Na snapped. You want your freedom, Talia? This is the only way. As long as that drive exists, someone will hunt you for it. Even him. She nodded at Victor. You want to be free? Then be free. Destroy the chain. Victor stared at her. A long, unnerving silence. The ghost of a smile returned, but it was different now. It was laced with something sharp, something that looked almost like respect. You are asking me to destroy the greatest prize I have ever seen, he asked. You get Ivan, Na said. You get to destroy him completely. You get to keep your territory. That's the deal. The ledger itself. It gets handed over to the only people who can clean this mess up, the feds. The feds? Victor and Talia said in unison, their voices laced with identical horror. It's the only way, Na said, her logic unassailable. Talia gets immunity in exchange for her testimony. Ivan goes to a prison that you can't reach. And I get to walk away. You are a mere waitress, Talia breathed, a look of stunned, grudging admiration on her face. You might actually pull this off. This is the price, Na said to Victor, her eyes locked on his. Talia's freedom, Ivan's arrest, and my escape. You get your victory. You get your empire secured. But you don't get the ledger. Victor was silent for a full minute. He circled her, a predator inspecting a creature he had never seen before. He saw her trembling hands, but he also saw the iron in her spine. She was not a pawn. She was, as she had said, a player. You are asking me to give up the power to control this entire city, he said, his voice soft, lethal. I'm asking you to keep your promise, Na countered. You said you would protect me with your life. This is the only way. If you keep that drive, I will never be safe. I will always be your loose end. I will always be a target. This is my choice. He stopped inches from her. The scent of his cologne, sandalwood and amber, was a cloud around them. She could feel the warmth of his skin. You will go into the hotel, he said. Not a question but a final term. I will, she said. You will retrieve the drive. I will. You will give it only to me. I will decide what to do with the information, but I will guarantee Talia's escape, and I will guarantee your escape. You have my word. The word of the wolf. It was a compromise, but it was a victory. He had not agreed to destroy it, but he had agreed to her terms, freedom. One more thing, Na said, her voice dropping. There is more. His voice was laced with a dangerous amusement. The chase. When I come out, Ivan's men will be everywhere. How do I survive? Ah, Victor said, the smile finally reaching his dark eyes. That is the easy part. You will not have to fight. He turned to the computer terminal. Talia, you said Ivan has a mole in my organization? Talia nodded. His head of security, Dimitri, the man from the restaurant. I know, Victor said simply. Talia's blood drained from her face. You knew, and you let him? You never let a betrayal go to waste, Victor said. Typing. You use it. Dimitri thinks he is feeding Ivan information. He is, in fact, feeding Ivan my information. He hit a key. A schematic of the Volov Hotel appeared on the screen. We are going to create a diversion, Victor explained. A massive one. Dimitri is going to tell Ivan that I am moving you, Talia, tonight, a high-risk, high-visibility convoy. Ivan will pull all his men from the hotel to hit that convoy. He won't be able to resist. He will be hunting a ghost. And while he's hunting me, Talia breathed, seeing the plan. I walk out the front door, now finished in my housekeeping uniform with the real drive in my pocket. A diversion, Victor said. A classic chase. By the time he realizes the hard drive is gone, Talia will be on a plane, and you, Kraska, you will be the most valuable invisible girl in the world. He turned to Nina, his face serious. This is the choice. You are no longer my prisoner. You are my agent, my partner. You will do this. Na thought of her drafty apartment. She thought of the fear. Then she thought of the power she now held. She was the only one. She nodded. I'll do it. The Volov Hotel was a monument to gaudy, hollow power. The lobby was a cavern of black marble and gold leaf. A place so opulent, it felt sterile, like a billionaire's mausoleum. It smelled of hothouse lilies and expensive perfume. Na pushed the aluminum housekeeping cart, its left wheel squeaking faintly. A tiny human flaw in a world of polished perfection. Her heart raced, a frantic, muffled drum against her ribs. She was wearing a drab gray uniform, her hair tucked under a net. She was invisible, a shadow, and she had never felt more exposed. You are approaching the lobby security desk. Victor's voice echoed in her head, a cold, calm presence in her earpiece. Do not look at the man in the gray suit. He is Ivan's. Head to the service elevator on your left. Do exactly as I say. Na obeyed, her eyes fixed on the scuffed toes of her shoes. She slipped through a pair of unmarked steel doors, the click of the lock disengaging sounding as loud as a gunshot in her ears. The opulent silence of the lobby vanished, replaced by the humid, metallic clang of the hotel's arteries. The diversion is moving. Victor's voice continued, his tone devoid of emotion. Talia is in the decoy convoy. Dimitri is leading them into the trap. And Ivan, Nina whispered, her breath shallow, her lips barely moving. He is taking the bait. He is pulling his men from the hotel to the ambush site. The nest is being left unguarded. Your window is open. Krushka, go. The service elevator groaned, carrying her up. The staff changing room was on the service level. A dimly lit basement room that smelled of industrial bleach and stale sweat. It was a world away from the luxury above. Locker 34B. Her trembling fingers fumbled with the combination. The lock clicked open. Her heart raced. Inside, beneath a pile of discarded rags, was a single green hiking boot. She plunged her hand into the darkness. Her fingers brushed against something hard, taped to the insole, the hard drive. She pulled it out. It was cold, heavy, the weight of an empire. She shoved it deep into the waistband of her uniform, the cold metal pressing against her skin. "I have it," she whispered. "Good." Victor's voice was sharp. "Now get out. Housekeeping. You are just a ghost. Walk out the front door." She pushed her cart back into the service elevator and pressed the button for the lobby. The doors slid shut. This is it, she thought. Just walk out. Invisible. The elevator jerked to a halt. The lights flickered and died, plunging her into pitch black. "Victor," she hissed. "Victor, what's happening?" Silence. The earpiece was dead. The elevator doors dinged and slid open, not onto the lobby. It had stopped on a residential floor. Standing in the hallway were two men, the same two men from table 8. Na's blood ran cold. The real mole. She breathed. The decoy was a decoy. "Hello, waitress." The first man sneered in Russian, his pistol raised. "The wolf is clever. He played a good game with Dimitri, but he forgot Ivan has more than one dog." He had been played. Victor had been played. The whole plan was a trap. "The drive," the man commanded. I don't know what you're talking about," Na stammered, her hands gripping the cart. "Don't lie." He stepped into the elevator, grabbing her, his fingers biting into her arm. He shoved her out into the hallway. "Ivan is downstairs. He wants to see you. And his property." This was it. The fear was absolute. A spine-chilling paralysis. She had failed. Talia was dead. Victor was. The curiosity that had burned in her for days was replaced by a sudden, blazing rage. She had not come this far to die in a hotel hallway. "The decoy is hit." A voice shouted down the hall. "They have Orov." The first man smiled. "A perfect night. Now move." He shoved her toward the main elevators. As they walked, Na's eyes darted, her mind racing. Think like him. Cold, logical. Use what you have. They reached the elevator bank. He pressed the button. "Wait," Na said, her voice shaking but loud. I dropped my ring in the elevator. It was my grandmother's." "I don't care," he snarled. "Please," she begged, tears welling. "It's all I have." She pointed back into the service elevator she'd come from. "It's right there on the floor." The man looked at his partner. He rolled his eyes. "Fine, bistro. Quickly." He shoved her back toward the service elevator, the doors still open. Na stepped inside, crouching down, pretending to look. "I see it." She reached under the safety railing, and her fingers found the emergency stop button. She slammed it with all her weight. The elevator screamed as the brakes engaged, the car shuddering violently. A high-pitched alarm began to blare. The guard roared in anger. Realizing the trick, he lunged for her. Nina scrambled out, shoving her housekeeping cart directly into his path. He tripped, crashing into it. "Run!" She screamed to herself. She didn't run for the stairs. She ran down the hotel corridor, away from the elevators. It was a dead end. "You're trapped, you stupid girl!" The guard yelled, untangling himself. Na didn't stop. She ran to the end of the hall, to the last door, suite 2810. She grabbed the fire alarm pull station on the wall and yanked it. The shrill ring was deafening. A piercing electronic scream that drowned out all thought. Sprinklers exploded overhead, showering the hallway in an instant. A cold downpour. The chase was on. The two guards were running, slipping on the newly formed puddles. Na was trapped. She grabbed the handle of suite 2810. Locked. She heard a click from her earpiece. A burst of static. "Nina." Victor's voice. Not calm but a furious roar. "What did you do?" "The mole!" she screamed, pounding on the door. "It wasn't Dimitri. It was someone else. They're here. I know it." He yelled back. The decoy had been hit. It was a trap. "Now listen to me. The door. The code is 10008. Na's trembling fingers fumbled with the keypad. Click. The light turned green. She threw herself inside the dark suite, slamming the door just as the guards' bodies crashed against the other side. They roared, firing their pistols through the wood. Gunfire cracked and splintered the door. Na screamed, crawling away. "Victor, they're coming through." "I see you," he said. "Go to the window now." Na scrambled through the dark penthouse suite. She reached the massive window. The rain and sprinkler water were streaking the glass. Below, the city was a sea of sirens. "I'm here." "Good," he said. The shadow of a helicopter rose from below the window, its thrum vibrating the very floor. It was black, sleek, and utterly terrifying. The side door was open. "The window doesn't open," she screamed, clawing at the latch. "I know." A man in black tactical gear was harnessed to the side of the helicopter. He was holding a large, industrial-looking tool. He aimed it at her window. "Move away from the glass, Kraska," Victor ordered. Na dove behind a sofa. The window didn't shatter. It imploded. A sudden, violent thump as a specialized charge shattered the safety glass into a million dull cubes. The wind and rain howled into the room. "Go," Victor commanded. Na ran, climbing over the frame, the wind tearing at her. The helicopter was so close, the downdraft almost knocked her off her feet. The man in black grabbed her, his grip like steel, and hauled her inside. "She's in," he yelled into his mic. The helicopter banked sharply, pulling away from the building, a powerful thrum vibrating in her bones. Na looked down. She saw the flashing lights of police cars swarming the hotel. She saw on the street far below, a war zone. The decoy convoy was on fire. And she saw at the window of the suite she had just left, the figures of the two guards firing uselessly at the sky. She had made it. She had the drive. The earpiece crackled again. It was Victor. He was breathing hard. You okay?" he asked, his voice rough, the command gone, replaced by something else, something raw. "I'm alive," she breathed, clutching the hard drive through her uniform. "I know," he said. I'm sorry. I was wrong. The mole was deeper. I put you in there. You got me out," she said, watching the city lights blur together. "It's not over," he said. "Get the drive to the bunker. I'm on my way." The line went dead. The helicopter cut through the darkness, carrying the invisible Waitress and the secret that could burn the city to the ground. The thrum of the helicopter rotors was a physical assault, vibrating in Nina's bones, rattling her teeth. The wind and rain tore at her, a freezing, chaotic force in the darkness. She was clutching the harness so tightly, her knuckles were white, her other hand still protectively jammed against her waistband, feeling the cold, hard rectangle of the hard drive pressed against her skin. She was alive. The thought was a raw, jagged gasp. The helicopter didn't land on the roof. It descended into the earth, into the same subterranean garage she had fled with Victor what felt like a lifetime ago. The bay doors slammed shut, cutting off the storm, and the world was suddenly encased in a silent concrete tomb. The rotors spun down, the whump slowing to a groan, then stopping. The silence that rushed in was deafening. "We're secure," the tactical operative who had pulled her from the window yelled. The side door slid open. Anton, the real Anton, Victor's shadow, who had been directing the real diversion with Talia, was waiting. His face was granite as always. "This way, Letty," he said, his voice a low rumble. He grabbed her arm, not gently, and half pulled her from the helicopter. Na stumbled out, her legs, which had felt like jelly, now rigid with adrenaline. She was soaked to the bone, trembling from a mixture of cold and fear. They weren't in the penthouse. They were back in the white, sterile cold of the bunker. The steel door hissed open. Victor was there. He was not the calm, controlled Mafia boss from the penthouse. He was not the strategic predator from the hotel. This was a different man. He was standing in the center of the room, his white shirt torn at the shoulder, a long bloody graze marking his jaw. He was breathing hard, and his dark eyes were not cold. They were on fire. He was radiating a lethal, unrestrained fury, the betrayal, the failure of his plan. He looked like a wolf that had chewed off its own leg to escape a trap and was now back in his den, ready to kill anything that moved. "The drive," he commanded. His voice was not a thrum. It was a snarl. Na's trembling fingers fumbled at her waistband. The fear was back, sharp and acidic. This was not the man who had promised her protection. This was the man who had almost gotten her killed. "You were wrong," she said, her voice a reedy, accusing whisper. Victor's head snapped up, his eyes narrowed. "What? The mole?" she gasped, her breath catching. "It wasn't Dimitri. It was someone else. The men from the restaurant. They were waiting. It was a trap. Your diversion was a trap." "I am aware," he snarled, stepping toward her. "I was not wrong. I was played. I underestimated his reach. A mistake that will not happen again." He stopped inches from her, a towering inferno of power and rage. "Give me the drive." She pulled it from her waistband. It was wet, slick. She held it out to him. He didn't take it gently. He snatched it, his fingers brushing hers. A jolt of electricity that was pure, unfiltered rage. He turned his back on her, jamming the drive into the server port. "Talia," Na whispered, her voice shaking. "Is in the air," Victor said, his back still to her, his fingers flying across a keyboard. "Salvatore has her. The diversion convoy was hit as planned. Dimitri is dead. My men killed him, believing he was the traitor. Ivan played his hand perfectly. He made me clean up his mess for him." The server beeped. A screen lit up. "But he made one mistake," Victor whispered, his voice suddenly dropping, becoming that familiar, lethal calm. "He didn't account for you." He turned. "Talia is on the plane. She is safe." She upheld her bargain. He pointed to a small speaker on the desk. "She will give me the key when I give her the all-clear. And you?" He looked at Nina. "Are they all clear?" He pressed a button. "Salvatore, she is here. She is safe. Put Talia on." A burst of static. Then Talia's voice, thin and reedy. "Victor, she is here." Victor said, "Nina." Talia's voice was desperate. "Nina, are you alive?" "I'm here," Nina breathed. "I'm alive, Talia." "Oh my God. I thought when they said you were trapped." "Nanana," the passphrase. "It's the first line from my mother's favorite poem." Talia recited a string of 32 characters in Russian, a mix of letters and numbers. Victor typed, his fingers a blur. A new screen flashed. Decryption complete. It was open. The ledger. Ivan Vulov's entire life of secrets and betrayal was glowing on the screen. "You are free, Talia," Victor said, his voice flat. "Go. Do not come back." The line clicked dead. Victor stared at the screen, his face illuminated by the data. He was silent for a full minute. Na watched him, her heart hammering. This was the moment he would decide whether to keep his promise or become the new Ivan. You said you would burn it," Na whispered. "I said," Victor corrected, not looking at her, "that I would guarantee your escape. That I would give you Ivan." He picked up the secure phone. He made one call. Not to the FBI, not to the press. He dialed an international number. He spoke in rapid, fluent Russian, his voice a blade of polished steel. "This is Orlov." "Yes, that Orlov. I am informing you that your operations in New York are compromised. Ivan Volov has broken every code. He has brought open war to a civilian sector. He has become sloppy." A pause. "Yes, I have the ledger. I have everything. Your accounts in Cyprus, the deal with the senator, the name of your man in the FSB. Yes, all of it." He listened, his face impassive. "Here is my price," Victor said, his voice dropping. "You recall Ivan? You pull him out of my city tonight. He answers to you for his failure. You cede his territory, all of it, to me in exchange. I will not release the ledger to the Americans. You and I, we are not friends, but we are professionals. He is not. He is a loose end." He listened. "I thought you would see it that way. Do svidaniya." He hung up. He turned to Nina. "Ivan is finished. He is a dead man walking. He will be recalled to Moscow by midnight. He will face a trial there from which no one returns. You didn't burn it," Nina said, her voice hollow. "I don't need to burn it," Victor said. "It is my power. It is my insurance. As long as I have it, I am untouchable." "And me?" she whispered. "What about my escape? What about my justice?" You are a complication, he said. He walked past her to the elevator. He pressed the button. Come, it is time for you to go. 3 days later, the rain had returned. It streaked the massive glass windows of the penthouse. The silence was back, but it was no longer the silence of a cage. It was the quiet of an ending. Na was clean. She had slept for 20 hours. Anton had brought her food, which she ate. She was wearing a new set of silk clothes. She was healed, but she was empty. The elevator hissed open. Victor entered. He was immaculate, back in his perfect black suit. The cut on his jaw had healed to a faint, angry red line. He looked once again like the Mafia boss from the restaurant. He said nothing. He walked to the marble coffee table. He placed a small silver key on the polished surface. Beside it, he placed a new passport, her face, her new name. Beside that, he placed a leather-bound bankbook. This was it, he said, his voice a formal, cold thrum. The resolution. It is done. Talia is gone. Ivan is gone. The 2 guards from the hotel have been dealt with. The world believes you were a terrified waitress, a hostage who was rescued and has since disappeared. You are free. Free? She repeated. The word felt strange, foreign. The key is to an apartment on the Upper West Side. He continued, his voice neutral. High security. No one will ever associate it with me. The passport is your escape. The bankbook is your price. Payment in full. You kept your word. I am keeping mine. This was the choice. The escape. The out. Na looked at the key. She looked at the passport. She could walk out of that elevator, disappear, and spend the rest of her life trying to forget the scent of sandalwood and amber, or the gunfire crack in the hotel lobby. She could try to be invisible again. She picked up the key, its metal cold against her skin. She walked past him toward the elevator. She could feel his stillness, his absolute control. He was letting her go. She pressed the call button. The elevator doors slid open with a soft sigh, revealing the mirrored interior. Her escape, her new life. She stood on the threshold, 1 foot in the cage, 1 foot in the world. She thought of her drafty apartment, the groaning pipes, the aching feet, the crushing, lonely invisibility. That life as a ghost running from Ivan had been terror. But this world of shadows and power, it was alive. Nina, Victor's voice said. It was not a command. It was a quiet statement. She paused but did not turn. He will hunt you, Victor said. Ivan, not today, not tomorrow, but men like him, they don't forget, even from a gulag. He will have friends. One day you will be walking. You will hear a word of Russian, and it will be the last thing you hear. You said I was safe, she whispered, her back still to him. You are safe from his organization. You are not safe from him. There is a difference. Out there you will always be running. Na's hand clutched the key. She looked at her reflection in the mirrored door. A new face, a new name, but the same fear in her eyes. She turned around, slow, deliberate. She looked at this dangerous, lethal man who had upended her entire existence. You paid my price, she said, her voice shaking but clear. But you didn't pay yours. Victor's eyebrow raised. My price? You're a fool, Victor, she said, her voice gaining strength. She walked back toward him, away from the elevator. You're brilliant, but you're blind. You were played. You had 2 moles, not 1. You almost got us both killed. I am aware, he said, his voice turning to ice. So, if I walk out that door, she continued, stopping just out of his reach, who is going to watch your back? Who is going to listen to the whispers at the table behind you? Who is going to make sure your next fiancé or your next head of security isn't the real assassin? The silence stretched. He stared at her, the intensity of his gaze a physical touch. You are not applying for a job, Nina, he said, his voice a low thrum. I know, she said, lifting her chin. I'm telling you my terms. For a long, agonizing moment he was still. Then, a sound she had never heard from him. He laughed. It was not a ghost of a smile. It was a deep, real, and utterly terrifying sound. You walk into my world, he said, shaking his head. A world that eats girls like you for breakfast. You save my life. You break my organization. You are nearly killed. And now you are giving me terms. He stepped forward, closing the space. The scent of his cologne was a cloud, a temptation. "I am not looking for a bodyguard," he whispered. "I know," she whispered back, not flinching, though her heart raced. "You're looking for someone you can trust." He stopped, his face inches from hers. "I don't trust anyone. You trusted me with your life in the restaurant, in the hotel." She raised her hand and, for the first time, touched him, her trembling fingers tracing the healed cut on his jaw. "You're a king, Victor, but every king is blind. You need someone to see in the shadows for you." He captured her hand, his grip possessive, his dark eyes blazing. The cold control finally completely gone, replaced by a raw, burning fire. "I am not looking for a partner," he growled. "I know," she breathed. "I am looking for a queen." "And the price?" she whispered, her body alive with a new, terrifying passion. "Everything," he breathed, "your past, your future, your destiny. You will never be invisible again. You will stand by my side and you will belong to me. I accept." He kissed her. It was not a gentle kiss. It was not the desperate claiming kiss of the bunker. It was a vow. It was a deal sealed in fire. It was the possession of her soul and the willing surrender of his. It was a promise of a new, dangerous forever. Na kissed him back, letting the fear and the past burn away, replaced by the passion of the man who had become her new, dark destiny. He broke the kiss, resting his forehead against hers, his breathing harsh. He looked at the key she still clutched in her other hand. He took it from her, his fingers closing around hers, the warmth of his skin chasing away the cold. He walked to the window and through it. It vanished into the rain and the city below. He turned back to her, a ghost of a smile on his lips, the smile of the wolf who had finally found his mate. "You were never invisible, Kraska," he whispered, pulling her to him.